Um, Footwork on the reformer is one of the basic things that we do a lot in class. If you're new to reformer work, it's probably the first exercise you might start with. And in terms of the different settings on the reformer, I'm just going to go through what we are looking for as the ideal setup on the reformer. So in terms of the foot bar, we generally would start the foot bar high, so it would be on the high setting. In terms of the springs, depending on what reformer you're on, they might have different colour springs. Ours, generally it's a blue is half a spring and red is a full spring. Balanced Body have a yellow, which is a quarter, and they also have a green, which equates to 1.5. So if we're telling you, look, start off with 2 springs on the reformer or 2.5 springs on the reformer, you would generally know that's 2 reds or 2 reds and a blue. And if you're not sure, then you just ask. If you're coming in from a clinical rehab point of view, we will set the machines up for you and we'll make sure that everything's correct for you. If you're in a group class, obviously that's something that we would want you to know, and also know where your settings are. So I'm just going to pop this onto 2 springs. It would normally be on 2.5, and in terms of the spring colour, you obviously go with which reformer you're using. So I'm starting off on 2 springs for basic footwork, and then we're going to get started on the machine itself. I'll actually take this pink thing off. We just use it to protect our beds from zips and the like, and I'll pop myself up on the reformer. So the easiest way, sit yourself down, roll yourself onto the reformer, and then we've got heels up. Now, in terms of the head, we're looking at the different head positions. So we'll start from the head. If your headrest is flat, so I'm just going to pop my headrest flat, what it will tend to do if I move my arm is pop my back up, okay? And what we want is that your back stays nice and flat through the machine. So you want your back in your neutral position and your rib cage neutral. We don't want those ribs popping out, okay? So we will generally set the machine up so it's a little bit higher, and you can see there my ribs should sit flat. If I'm arched here, I'm going to be overusing my back muscles. So in general terms, under the shoulder rests and making sure that our rib cage is flat. In terms of the posture for your back, you want the back in neutral. And my neutral here, because my knees are behind my hips, I'm actually in flexion. You can see I've got some space under my tail. So it means the foot bar for me is too close. Okay, I would ideally want to be in 90, which is there. And you can see my knee is in front. So I will be moving this foot bar away. So if you're looking and you're able to see yourself in the mirror, if your feet are on the foot bar and your knees are in front, or whichever way you want to look at it, if the knees are closer to your chest than your hips and you're not at 90 degrees here, we need to move the foot bar. Okay, so I'm going to move this machine backwards a tiny way, and I'm going to pop back down, and you should see that's a much better position for my alignment. So if you want to get the knees right first and then go to the top, or you want to get the top right first and then go to the knees, it really doesn't matter. Probably from a practical point of view, I would get the legs first, because then all you're doing is adjusting while you're on the bed. Okay. Now in that position there, I should be in a slight tilt, and my tail should be nice and heavy through my tailbone. Footwork itself is basically in a parallel position, feet and toes, and the difference in what we're doing is basically how we work. Okay. So it's generally a breath in to prepare, exhale and we push, inhale and we come back. So exhale, we press away, inhale and we come back in. Now the purpose of doing the exercise that way, just change the angle so you can see a little bit better. The purpose of doing the exercise that way is that as we're pushing, if you start on the heels, we're engaging a little bit more through the hamstrings, and then we're controlling and engaging the hamstrings to come back in. Okay, so if you hear the bang at the end, we're not really controlling it. You want to be using the muscles to stretch and working the muscles to slow the carriage down as it comes in. So if you're thinking of the purpose of it, we're looking at trying to keep your pelvis in neutral and work the hips and the knees to disassociate, so move independently. One of the top issues that we see with this exercise is that what tends to happen is people push, and as they push their back into the bed. And you can see, if you have a little look at my rib cage here, as I push into the bed, I curl and my tail comes up, and I'm really flattening my spine in. So what I'm actually using is my quads. And then we see a lot of people doing them as quickly as they can and with as much spring on as they can. And really all you're doing is getting a cardio workout and building up your quads. Okay? If you're looking at trying to build up your core strength and build up the different support muscles around your back and your legs, you're looking at staying in neutral, so pubic bone and pelvis in neutral, flush to the ceiling, pushing out through the hamstrings at the back, no gripping with the tail because that looks quite different. If I grip there, you can see on my bottom lifts, and we're looking at controlling it through at the back. Okay? When we start to change the position of the feet, so when we start moving on to our toes, what happens is it sets up a challenge around our pelvis and our core. So as we push with the toes now, it's a little bit of a more challenge for me to control my pelvis. Here, I have some hamstrings helping me, and I'm in a good neutral position. Here, the tendency is that it's easier for me to lose control here and be tilted that way, or I might want to grip more that way to keep my back flat. So coming from heels to toes, a little bit more challenging around the core. Okay? Again, exhale as we press away. Inhale as we come all the way back in. And again, we don't want to see gripping here or flattening down through the spine. We want to see that the rib cage and everything stays nice and heavy. Okay? Third position is where we just take the toes into a slight V position. So instead of being parallel, we just turn the toes out, heels come together, basically like a little V, and we push away. Once we're in this position here, you should feel that as the knees come into a slight frog, so they come apart slightly, you get a little bit more of a wrap through the outside of the thighs. Again, it shouldn't be that you feel that your glutes clench and lift, but you will feel that you're getting an outward wrap which starts to wrap through the upper thigh, but also inner thighs are working, and you'll feel that it zips up a little bit more through the pelvic floor. So exhale, push. You should feel inner thighs a little bit of a zip up through the pelvic floor. As you come in and control it back, we should feel that the tail, everything softens out again. Okay, so exhale, press away. You'll get an outward wrap. Inner thighs, calves, and tummy and core are working as well as your pelvic floor, and we control it back down. So same principle, we don't want to be bracing and lifting through the pelvis as we do it. We definitely don't want to be arching, so we feel that we have an arch through the back and our rib cage lifts. Everything should sit nice and heavy. Okay. Coming on to calves, we might tell you to start in your mini stiletto position. Press out through the legs, lower the heels to stretch, lift the heels to come up, and then the knees to come back in. Okay? The purpose of this is to give you a little bit of ankle mobility, but also working on alignment. It is quite hard work through the toes. It is quite hard work through the foot and the arches of the foot, and obviously the calf. And we might get you to do lower and lift, and then come back in. Same principles apply. We're not lifting, we're not gripping through the tail, we're not bracing and arching through here. The work is coming through most of the legs. And then obviously there's a little bit of prancing that we can do where we just alternate which leg that's getting used. Okay. In terms of other exercises that we can do with the footwork position, you can do them in a wide position on the bed. So you're actually wide through the legs, which is mimicking how you do squats. And obviously if you wanted to, we can work toes in if we want to work some different muscle positions there. In terms of why we do footwork, if we go back to that basic start again, if you're doing something like squats, you'll just do squats. You'll go how you're taught to do squats. Using it this way, your body's not familiar with this exercise. So if you look at what I'm actually doing, I'm starting from a squat position and pushing out, then coming back into the squat position. So my brain is able to retrain some of my muscles to work efficiently. If I was doing my standard squat, I might just come into a squat and actually use the muscles that I'm familiar with. Okay, so that's one good way of using the machine to work. The other thing is if we want to then challenge you, we can start doing single leg. Okay, and we could do single leg as you come in, stretch, single leg, come under the bar. So you're getting a little bit of a challenge through that leg, a little bit more of a challenge through the top. Or we might challenge you by just holding the leg still, or we might challenge you by, as you come in, we might lift and lower, or we might come in and lift and lower as you move out. Okay, so there's a whole heap of things that you can look at through basic footwork that can make things a little bit different for you. Just mentioning the foot bar, we did talk about the foot bar yesterday. If you look at my legs here, they're in 90 degrees. Okay, if I want to make all those exercises that little bit harder, I can just change that so that it's lower. Okay, now if I start here now, the foot bar is a little bit further away, so it's a little bit more of a challenge for me when I'm pushing out, because it's lower. I'm more likely to get tipped that way. So when I push here, it's harder for me to stay in. So it's a little bit more of a challenge for my pelvis. So in terms of what we're doing, if we want to change and challenge up some of the exercises, obviously we can. If we want to make sure that we're doing some of the exercises single leg or double leg, we can. If we want to challenge what we use as a foot plate, we can use something like the jump board so that we've got a static thing, and that's heaps of different options that you can do for your footwork variations. Okay, some of the other ones might be as simple as putting a half roller on the bed so we can challenge a surface, or we might use some of the balance discs underneath you so that you've got a little bit of a challenge through your surface. But in terms of footwork itself, if you're looking at doing some basic work but making it effective, keep the spring lower, and that will challenge your core and your stability mechanisms around your hip a little bit more. If you're looking at trying to get the springs higher, you're going to be working the muscles more, which in turn will mean that you're not as efficiently using your core. So less is more for the core, more is good if you're looking at specifically for your legs. So I hope you enjoyed that little bit on footwork on the reformer. They're great fun to use. They're very effective because we can isolate things a little bit more. Incidentally, if you want a little bit, if you are using reformers at home and you want a little bit more extra work to do, if you are looking at things, I'll just take my lead away from this way. If you're looking at things like your 10 sets, we can do exhale, press, inhale, come in and go out and in for 10. If you're looking at working a little bit more, stay here and do some tiny pulses. So, and then come all the way out. and do stop, stop. So again, you're just doing little end of range work. Again, you could do all of those on the toes. So you do your 10 coming out and in, and then 10 tiny movements here, and then 10 more towards end of range, or even halfway through range. So in terms of what we're doing in this position here, it could be press. So it's a press and press, and then it could be a stop, stop, stop. So you're using the muscles in two different ways. So heaps of training that you can do with the reformer, heaps of training and exercises that we can do in terms of rehab, but definitely in terms of classes, we can work your butt off in your legs and get them toned and strong and fit. You just need to make sure you're using them the right way. So footwork on the reformer, heaps of variations, have fun, and we'll speak again soon.